Morning. So we're up to Shin Nun Hey Seif Dalet. Shin Nun Hey Seif Dalet. Says the Mechaber. Ma'im she'ein amukim asara tfachim. Remember we were talking so far and earlier in this Siman, in Siman Aleph and Beis, in Sif Aleph and Beis, about a person who wants to draw water from a river which backs onto his house, or if he's in a boat, and he makes mechitzas teluyos. He makes a little frame and then he puts mechitzas down, and even though it doesn't go all the way down, we say gudachis. Those are the situations we were discussing in Sif Aleph and Beis. Now in Dalet we say Ma'im she'ein amukim asar tfachim. If the water is not 10 tfachim deep, ein loim din ma'im lahata lishbech bohem mechitza teluya. It's not going to help you to do this mechitza teluya. For kol shkenim yov shamayim, and certainly if the water dries out, afa pisha amukim asar, even if it was amukim asar, this mechitzas will not help you. Why not? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ma'im she'ein amukim sif cotton mem koyal sif aleph beis. Mem Aleph lishbech bohem v'huadin lemalos yidei mechitza teluya. You can't either pour into it or draw water from it. V'hatam, and the reason is kiven she'ein bohem asar tfachim. Since you haven't got 10 tfachim, kiyabosha damya. It's as if it's dry land. Va'ayin bebach u'mogin avrom shecholkin al zeh usril hu de'ein lechalik b'zeh. It doesn't make a difference. Im lo she'rabim mahalchim shom al yidei hatchak. Unless people walk there. Then it's treated like karka. He says that you can be mekel, and therefore, even though it hasn't got amukim asar tfachim, we would still allow you to do it, contrary to the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, Sif Hey. Now, Sif Hey, we're talking about a similar case to Aleph, where you've got two houses there. You've got like an apartment building which backs onto a river, and there are two people and two balconies. So says the Mechaber, you've got two balconies, one on top of the other. They're sort of in line with each other, but a little bit off. But they're within 4 tfachim. So if you look at picture number 28, you'll see what he's describing. You see that where you've got a house which backs onto the river, and you've got two balconies, one on top of the other, but the two balconies are within 4 tfachim of each other. So whether it doesn't make a difference how much higher they are from each other, even if they're more than 10 tfachim, even if there's more than 10 amas between them. And if they made some sort of shutfus, partnership between the top one, and nothing on the bottom one, both are going to be also until you make a proper eruv between the two balconies. For kolshken, and certainly if they made the shutfus in the bottom one, you've got to, if it was joint, the bottom one was jointly made, you've got to make an eruv between the two balconies. But if each of those two balconies just went solo, they did it alone, and they made their own mechitzas, then each one doesn't ask on the other. Then there's no problem, and it's back to Sif Aleph that each one would be able to draw water and pour water into the sea or into the river. If they both made shutfus with each other on both of them, okay. So again, so just what are we saying? You've got, in picture number 28, you've got the two balconies, but in the first picture they're within 4 tfachim of each other. Then, whether and regardless of how much higher the upper one is over the bottom one, you've got a problem that both asa each other, and they need to make an eruv for you to be able to draw water. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah to see more. Let me explain it in brief, says the Mishnah Berurah. And this is Sif Cotton Membase. You've got two apartments, a house and an upper floor, backing onto a river. And both of them have some sort of platform, some sort of balcony, which protrudes where you can draw water through it from the river underneath. If each of them made a mechitza like we described in Sif Yud Aleph, then no problem. Each one could draw water like we described in Sif Aleph from their Rishus HaYochid down, because as we described in Sif Aleph, you're essentially making gudachis, you're making a mechitza down, and you're drawing from Rishus HaYochid and not from a karmelis, no problem. But if they made one gzustra in partnership together, but if there's a partnership, and let's say between one of the balconies, then they have the status of two people in one chotzer, and therefore they asr on each other, and they can't draw water to this balcony. Because the two rishuyos are sheletes unless they made an eruv. Because if they retain independent ownership of it, but they just did it b'shutfas together, then that's not an eruv, and then they've got like two separate owners in one chotzer. They asr on each other without making an eruv. So again, if they make two balconies and everyone just goes alone and make their own little mechitza, no problem. But if they're doing some sort of shutfas together, then they're going to asr on each other and they've got to make an eruv. Now, when is that true? Says the Mishnah Berurah on the second line of the second wide line of the Mishnah Berurah. All of the above is true if the two balconies are quite close to each other, within 4 tfachim of each other. The width of the wall, because they're so close, it's convenient for each one to use each other. But if they're far away, and that's picture number 29, i.e. the two balconies are a bit distant from each other, more than 4 tfachim, and therefore, for example, can you see the picture in 29? The lower guy is trying to draw water using the upper gezustra. He's got to take his bucket and throw it into the gezustra above, and then sort of let it sort of drop down into the river. Derech abot tfachim. He's got to throw it more than 4 tfachim because the upper balcony is more than 4 tfachim away. The tashmish muflug kozeh ein choshev le'asa al chaverei, and this sort of tashmish where you got to throw the bucket more than 4 tfachim into the upper gezustra and let it sort of dangle down into the water is not an easy tashmish, and therefore ein choshev le'asa al chaverei afshalei arba banem is not going to asa in that situation. Okay, good. Mem gimel. Meshucha zu keneged zu. So you've got two gezustras and they're just not aligned, but they're within 4 tfachim. The point is, even if they're a little bit not aligned, they're a little bit drawn away from the other one. And certainly if they were on top of each other, they're considered, within 4 tfachim of each other, they would asr on each other. They're not more than 4 tfachim. Is it Ve'ein recheika mem daled? Yeah, ve'ein recheika mikenegda arba tfachim. But they're within 4 tfachim of each other. To be recheika mikenegda b'meshech recha v'kais arba tfachim. Because if it was in like picture 29 where it's more than 4 tfachim, then shuv lo asra adoti. They wouldn't asra on each other. She'eini yochil lishtamesh ela kadei zrikas adli ba'avir meirochuk ve'ein choshev tashmish le'eser. So again, what are we saying? Again, if you look at the two pictures, if they would just go alone and they would each make their mechitza, they could draw no problem into the water underneath it. But if, however, they're close to each other within 4 tfachim, then they asa on each other and they've got to make an eruv. If they're more than 4 tfachim away, because it's a difficult tashmish, then it's not considered a choshev tashmish, and they would not asa on each other, and they would not, they would be okay for this guy to do what he's doing in picture number 29. Yosim Agov, even if they're quite far away from each other from the heights, and the heights we're not particularly worried about. Even if the upper one is quite a lot higher and it's quite tricky to throw the bucket up there, Nevertheless, since we worry about distances, far away, not heights. Nevertheless, so we would call it a tashmish ta'asa. If they both did a shutfus on the bottom one, that's easier. It's easier to throw down accurately than throw up accurately. Mem Zayin, this is going on. Ein ha'acheres, yeah. But if avul kol achas man, if they did on their own independent mechitzas, then there'd be no problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ein ha'acheres, hainu afilu regil lishtamish b'shel chaver bechol. Even though I don't use my one, I use my friend's one to draw water from the river underneath. Afal pikein ein ha'acheres aleh. Nevertheless, each one does not us on the other. Shebe'etzem hala rishus ein shaykh lo, because I've got no rishus there. Unless they made some sort of agreement that I can use each other ones, then they would need an Erev. And then it says, "Afilu le'osa acheres b'shelo." Says the Mishnah Berurah Memches, "V'kol shkein kol achas asola atzmo." And certainly, if each one did it for themselves, the materes kol achas lishtamish beguzustra shelo b'li erev, then they could use it without an erev. Ach yeshemrim techol zedavke b'shem meshuches hakuzustra zumizu. That's when the balconies are sort of distant. I don't need to use the other one. But if the upper one is mamish on top of the bottom one, that's picture number 31, where you're going through the balcony of the bottom guy to draw the water. Yeah, sorry, Charlie.
It will be even if the other one doesn't use it?
Yeah, seemingly. Yeah. Okay. Also, im also bestehen. Last line of the Mechaber. V'chein im also bestehen b'shutvus mishal shnehem ein achas aseres al chaverto. So too, if both of them do it b'shutvus ein achas aseres al chaverto. Says the Mishnah Berurah Memtes Rotzuleima ta'afto amrinan le'el de'im tiknu la'achas b'shutvus. That if they did it b'shutvus shtein asuras lamalas sham kishelo irvu, they wouldn't be able to. They asked on each other if they didn't make an erev. Hudavkim tiknu rak achas ub'shniya le also mechitzah. That's only if they fixed up one and they didn't do mechitzah at all on the other one. Avalim also tikkun b'shteihem b'shutvus. But if they did a tikkun, both of them b'shutvus, then mutorim kolachas b'shelo. Each one can do their own one. Mishum dominim de kolachas sal kanavshe mechaverta, because each one has sort of distanced himself from the other one. Kim she'osso lo tikkun b'fnei atzma. I've done my own mechitzah for me. Or masha also b'shutvus eizetam hi lo im dova. For whatever reason, we did it b'shutvus. To get material. The kol shekain im also rak ba'achas b'shutvus. And certainly, if you only did one b'shutvus, v'ashniya also mechitzah legutzra shelo levado. Then for sure, you've separated and you're considered a separate entity. Okay, so there you go. A bit quick as ever, but I hope you got the idea. Okay.